Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into a massive global shift, a kind of strategic awakening. We're going to look at why nations are suddenly pouring money into defense, how that's kicking off a wild scramble for resources, and what it all means for the future of money and power.
And really, it all kicks off with this one powerful idea. For the last few decades, the West has been sleepwalking. That's not just a clever phrase. It's the heart of this entire story, a rude awakening that is forcing everyone to change the game plan, and fast.
You see, for a long time, many countries enjoyed what they called the peace dividend. It was this period of relative quiet where you could cut defense spending and focus on other things. Well, the alarm clock just went off, loudly. That era is over, and we are absolutely in a new, much more dangerous reality.
So let's break this down. On the left, you've got the world we used to live in. Smaller defense budgets, most countries counting on the U.S. security umbrella, and everything geared towards economic efficiency. But now, look at the right. That's today. Security threats are way up. Countries are pushing for what's called strategic autonomy, basically being able to defend themselves, and national security is now starting to trump pure economics. It's a total flip.
And this brings us to a number you're going to hear a lot about. 2%. This is the NATO target for how much of a country's economy should be spent on defense. For years, this was kind of just a suggestion, a goal to aim for. Not anymore. Now, for many nations, it's the absolute floor. It's the bare minimum.
And hitting that 2% target, it's not just a number on a page. It has huge, real-world ripple effects. We're talking about governments taking on massive new debt, which, you guessed it, can stoke inflation. And it creates a soaring, almost insatiable demand for the industrial metals you need to build a modern military. Everything from copper to those critical rare earth elements.
Which leads us to the next giant problem, right? It's one thing to say you're going to rebuild your military. It's another thing entirely to get your hands on the physical stuff you need to actually do it. And this question, where do the raw materials come from, is the perfect pivot to the next part of our story.
So here's the great paradox for the West. At the exact moment they need to rearm, they find themselves deeply dependent on their main strategic competitor for the very materials they need to do it. It's a huge strategic vulnerability.
And let's be crystal clear about this. The one thing investors and military planners all agree on right now is this simple, stark fact. When it comes to the critical metals that power the 21st century, China is in control.
And this table just lays it all out. I mean, look at these numbers. For rare earth elements, which are in basically every advanced weapon system, China handles almost 90% of the processing. For lithium and cobalt, essential for batteries, it's well over half. The key takeaway here isn't about who digs the stuff out of the ground, it's about who has the industrial might to turn that raw ore into something useful.
Now, this didn't happen overnight, but a few recent events have absolutely shattered any lingering complacency about how secure our global supply chains really are. It's been a very rude awakening.
And there are really three things that kicked this awakening into high gear. First, the pandemic showed us just how fragile and brittle our supply chains are. Second, China has already shown it's willing to use its control over these minerals as a political weapon by restricting exports. And third, the massive push for green energy needs unbelievable amounts of these exact same metals, creating a perfect storm of demand.
So what do? Well, this new reality is forcing nations and investors to pull out the world map and look at it in a completely different way. All of a sudden, it's not just about borders. It's about what valuable stuff is buried under the ground.
And this is where the stakes get incredibly high. This isn't just companies competing for contracts anymore. The resource war has gone from the boardroom to the war room. It's about national security now, and one of the hottest new frontiers in this conflict is the Arctic, specifically a place like Greenland.
Now, to understand why Greenland is suddenly so important, you have to know about the GIUK gap. Just think of it as a critical naval choke point in the North Atlantic. For NATO, controlling this gap is absolutely essential for keeping an eye on things, making Greenland just massively important from a purely military standpoint.
But here's the kicker. Greenland's value goes way beyond its military location. It is sitting on what could be one of the world's largest untapped deposits of rare earth elements and uranium. So the same piece of land that's critical for defense could also be the answer to the resource dependency we just talked about. It is a geological and geopolitical grand prize.
Okay, so all of this geopolitical drama, the rearming, the resource scramble, it's not just happening in a vacuum.
It's causing a fundamental shift in the world of finance, pushing investors to ask a very basic question. In a world this crazy, what is actually valuable?
And this quote from our source material just absolutely nails the sentiment in the market. It shows this deep, deep distrust in paper currencies and government debt. The logic is, it doesn't matter who is in charge. As long as governments are printing money to pay for everything, the value of that money is going down.
At its core, it's a profound skepticism of the entire financial system. It's the belief that all this massive spending, whether it's on defense or social programs, can only be financed one way, by creating more currency out of thin air, which devalues every dollar, pound, and euro already in existence.
So what do? You run for cover, you make a flight to safety in things you can actually touch. We're talking about real assets: gold, silver, copper, and yes, all those critical minerals we've been talking about. In this worldview, the ultimate store of value isn't a political promise or a number on a screen, it's rocks in the ground.
And that really brings us to the central question of our whole explainer today. As we watch this global strategic awakening play out, this mad scramble for physical stuff, and this deep questioning of our money, it leaves us with one final, very provocative question. In a world of digital printing and political promises, what will we be able to count on as having real, enduring value?